Welcome to the Becoming Superhuman podcast. I'm your host, Trevor Schmidt. I was trained in Western medicine as a physician assistant, where I was exposed to the dark side of medicine. Through self-education and biohacking, I figured out ways to hack my system, becoming a better version of myself. We'll explore the wisdom and insight of my findings with each episode of the Becoming Superhuman podcast. Hello and welcome to the Becoming Superhuman podcast. We got special guest here, Jason Plevell, who's a personal transformation specialist who his expertise is in guiding individuals out of the shadows of feeling stuck and into the light of their true potential. Super excited to talk to you, Jason. How are you doing today?
Doing excellent, man. Thank you for having me on. This is real exciting to be here.
Awesome. So, personal transformation specialist, what exactly does that mean?
Well, that's a good question because it does really encompass a really broad range. I mean, transformation can mean anything.
Right.
Just getting from point A to point B. For me personally, it was a struggle dealing with alcohol, dealing with obesity, just a lot of depression because I was stuck in a job that I created, basically a prison for myself, and I had to get out of it. And so transformation can mean really anything to a number of different people.
Now, I like the language that you've utilized in your bio and your profile, and it's ominous of more Eastern philosophies. What's your background?
I've studied a lot of Buddhism, Taoism, just been really drawn to traditional Chinese medicine
Okay.
for a number of years. Yeah, studied about the different meridians of the human body, practiced a little bit with a Taoist monk who is actually not a Taoist monk. I mean, he is a Taoist monk, but he's from the UK, just a wonderful individual. And there's been just a number of they've been around a lot longer than we have. Let me just put it that way. There's a ton of knowledge that's over there on that side of the world.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a big part of my learning and my seeking of knowledge has been in that realm. So I recognized a lot of the language that you utilize that resonated with me. Part of the reason why we're talking here today. One of the things you talked about was your goal is to illuminate the path to self-realization. Can you expound on that and describe what that means to you?
You know, I believe everybody has a piece of divinity inside of them. And we all, whether you believe in God or you just believe in some type of universal creator, we all have, and we're all from nature,
Mhm.
right? And if we just stop, if we get out of our own ways, and if we just allow ourselves to be who we are innately inside of us, authentically ourselves, nature never rushes anything, and it's perfect just the way it is. And if we can just tap into that, because we are a part of that nature, we have that divinity inside of us, some type of God consciousness or something that's driving innately our soul, our spirit. And if we can just become that, get out of our heads, let our ego go, man, we can tap into that and become really special individuals. We already are. I mean, that's the whole point. Once we drop that facade, we're perfect just as we are.
Here you use the word divinity a few times. Can you describe a little bit what that means?
I was raised Catholic and went to a Catholic school for the first 8 years of schooling, and I hated it, man, despised it every day. And going to church and organized religion, so it's definitely not coming from an organized religion perspective. It is more of a spiritual sense when I say the word divinity. When I use the word God, it's not, praying to some ultimate being. It's this knowing, like when you plant a seed in the ground, you just know that it's going to grow and it's going to turn into a beautiful flower and it's going to bloom someday. And our soul, the essence of who we are, it's the exact same thing. We have the divinity that allows that flower to do that. We also have that inside of us too.
I grew up, my mom made me go to church every weekend,
Yeah.
every Sunday. I even all the way through high school, I was going to church groups and, youth groups and things like that. And as soon as I got out of the house, that was a thing of the past. I was like,
Yeah.
I'm on. And it was interesting because then I got into college and I actually took religious studies courses, but it was, what I got out of those was basically religion seemed to be a way historically for leaders to manipulate, if that's the right word, and to guide people, through the belief structures into basically doing what they wanted. And if you look back historically with the religion, it's interesting how the wording and things have changed over time, dependent on who is utilizing those words. Uh,
Exactly.
Furthermore, the Bible has been, I mean, everybody's like follows the Bible as this, but it's been rewritten hundreds of times, thousands of times perhaps, and
Yeah.
every time it takes on new meaning and new interpretation. So
Well, and we can interpretate scripture however we want to. It's the meaning that we assign to the words that makes it unique and special to us. And you bring that up, it's actually a funny point because when I say divinity inside of all of us, there is a chapter in the chapter of Luke, a verse in there that I maybe kind of spurs all of that, but it says the kingdom of God is in man, is within man. And I've seen many different translations of that scripture, but that's the one that means the most to me.
mhm.
And if heaven is inside of us, like we're all, yeah, putting this Bible context, we have to live according to the word of God in order to get to heaven. Well, heaven's already in here. It's already inside of us.
I've been going through the self-realization process with Paramahansa Yogananda. He discusses how in quantum physics, they're talking about how everything is energy at this point, and which kind of coincides with religion because it's kind of this a similar explanation of God as all beings and omnipresent. He describes that we are able to almost be like a conduit and accept the energy of God, and it comes through us, and we have our willpower, which is the ability to utilize the energy how we like, kind of like a rudder, to utilize that energy however we choose to use it. And some people will waste that energy, and it just, every day they're just wasting it because they have no focus, and other people will be like laser beam focused and be able to change the world. It's all based off of that willpower, and the willpower, the energy coming in is from this divine energy as you discuss it.
Interesting. That's so funny you bring that up because I've just started diving into a little more quantum physics and quantum jumping and leaping, whatever terms you want to use. But the book I'm reading right now is by Sean Carroll, Something Deeply Hidden, and he talks about the many worlds theory in there, and
Yeah.
it's right along lines with what you just said.
Interesting. When I was doing my research and getting into quantum physics is really the boundary of where religion and science are starting to meld, and they're using similar language,
Yeah,
uh, which kind of it's like I don't know. When I was younger, I heard that everything comes back to God, and not into the whole religious thing. I was like, yeah, whatever. But then in doing the research, it's like everything comes back to God. Even in the different industries like marketing and advertising they seem to start bringing the same lessons that we learn in the spiritual teachings.
yep. It's just after a while you start to see all the connections being made.
Right. So now, one of the things that you had discussed was overcoming adversity and resilience, and building your self-discovery. Can you discuss a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. And when it comes to adversity, I mean, we all have our troubles. We're all going through something. And the way I see it is every single negative experience that we have, just it can't be wasted. Like you get on this poor me mentality, and as soon as you do that, you start going down this bad path, and the world is out to get me. Everybody hates me. My wife or my husband despises me, and my kids hate me. Nothing in life is gonna go right. This poor me mentality. But if you could just take that one tiny shift and go from why is this happening to me and why is it happening for me? Like there's always some type of lesson. And I think any number of the great motivational speakers or gurus will say the same thing. It's go from that shift. What is this trying to teach me? There's always some type of lesson in the adversity. Man, you just build up your resilience every single day. The more you focus on those questions that actually empower you and drive you forward to overcome that. I mean, it's either you're either going to give in and die a pitiful person, or you're going to figure it out and grow and become a better individual. I can't remember who it is that says it, but he says, look back at every single challenge or trauma you've ever faced. You're still here. That means you have a 100% success rate. It doesn't matter the shit you're going through right now. You're going to get through it. I
Right.
mean, you're either going to die, or you're going to go through it.
Touches on the idea of faith and, just believing that you've already been successful in the past and you've survived. You're here, so you've survived, so just have faith that things are going to work out. And the interesting thing that I heard you say was that, things don't happen to us, but rather they happen for us. And so the belief that when you get this mindset of you're a victim and things are happening to me, then you will act like a victim. Whereas if you're looking for how this can help you because it's happening for you, this is an opportunity for you. And if that, it's just a mindset change, right? It's just that little shift.
Yep.
And you start acting differently based off of that mindset shift is when your life really everything starts to come and happen for you.
It's what is it? The reticular activating system. You turn that on, you start to notice things more and more, the things that happen for you. It does. It takes a tiny shift. And you have to be disciplined with that shift. You have to make sure that you're disciplining that and growing that shift every single day. Otherwise, you're going to fall down that bad trap. But if you just develop that mindset, this life is a big game for us to play, and we're going to win it no matter what. What game are you playing though?
Right.
What are you focusing on?
When things happen for us, it's that we should almost be like searching for the reason why it's happening. And so if you ask yourself, like something bad happens, instead of complaining about it, asking yourself, why is this happening?
Mm-hmm.
And trying to learn the lessons from it. Because I've been saying this a lot lately that, you'll continue to experience the same problems until you learn your lessons. And as soon
Yep.
as you learn lessons, you don't have to have the problem anymore.
Exactly.
So if you can focus on what it is that the lessons are, then maybe you can learn lessons faster and get on to the next lessons.
I can't help but think of some of the individuals that I've worked with when they get stuck on that carousel of despair, is what this Taoist monk that I work with, he always calls it the carousel of despair. And once you get stuck on that and you're in this constant loop, and you can even ask yourself the question, why is this happening? Well, I'm being punished, like God, whatever, you were raised Catholic like we were, and God is punishing me. Well, okay, this infinite being in the universe is picking on 1 out of 8 billion people. He's just picking on you. It's like, come on, get out of that get out of the gutter. It's like, just start to change your mindset a little bit. Why is this happening to me? God's punishing me. Okay, well, why is God punishing me? And it's the constant questioning. We have to constantly question ourselves and our belief systems, because it's our belief systems that are driving all of that.
Absolutely. Can you share any personal experiences in your life that you've faced obstacles and overcome them?
Yep. Yeah. The how I ended up here on this journey, about 14 years ago, I was working in the corporate industry and had a real bad run-in with my boss. And um, I was a young guy in my early 20s, and he brought me into a meeting and just belittled me, berated me in front of everybody, told me to shove things where the sun don't shine, in terrible places. And so I told myself, I'm done working for other people. And I started a personal training business. Things went really well for a while. Met my now ex-wife. Things are very amicable. We're best friends. But things, as far as becoming a family man and having to set my own goals aside, or not knowing how to continue to grow myself and take care of a family, I ended up creating a job that I didn't like anymore. I had to set my personal training and my personal development business off to the side, and I started a construction company. Being a man was just something that men do. It was getting into that. It was something my dad did, skills that had passed down that I wasn't necessarily proud of, but it was a good way to provide for the family and pay the bills. I started drinking though right away, and for about 8 years, I was a closet alcoholic, a functioning alcoholic. My wife had no idea I was drinking.
Mhm.
I gained about 60 pounds, drinking almost every single day, missing parts of my kids' growing up, things that I don't remember. And it wasn't until an employee of mine went and talked to my wife and said, I don't think I can work for Jason anymore because of his drinking. And she said, what drinking? And so everything came to light, and it was a wake-up call, and things started to shift and change quickly and dramatically. That was about 10 months ago. And so I haven't had a drop of alcohol since then. And there was something that switched in me the very next day and said, this is not who I am. I know better. I know more about myself inside, internally, and started changing all my belief systems from I'm a dirty construction worker to I'm a peak performance athlete. And I started road biking a lot and went from 15 miles to 20 miles to 50 miles to doing 60-mile biking trips, and started to lose weight, feel better about myself again. Started this coaching business that I'm running now. And it's still a journey, still learning every single day. And there's still struggles. There's still traumas that we get through as human beings, but it's keeping yourself disciplined, just remembering who you are innately inside, and constant never-ending improvement, just being obsessed with improvement.
It's interesting how, in order for people to change, in many cases, you have to hit that, that proverbial rock bottom, so to
Mm-hmm.
speak, or that point when it's just like that, like you said, you call it your wake up call. And I think that historically, I mean, in my life, I've seen people hit these points and then they actually change. But then there's many times when it's like they didn't actually hit the bottom and they don't actually change then. They'll
Right.
continue doing the same stuff and having the same issues. And it's almost as if it has to be bad enough in order for them to like get that smack upside the head and, you got to change. How do you get people to have that shift, that change without hitting the rock bottom?
Mm, that's a good question. I don't know if that's possible, and whether you actually have to actually hit the rock bottom, or if you just have to be afraid of hitting it. Tony Robbins says it best. I think there's only two motivators. It's either pain or pleasure. And you have to either experience the pain well enough to where you are motivated to make change, or you have to see the pleasure, in the future, the stuff that you want to be experiencing. But lately, with this new topic of quantum physics and quantum jumping and tapping into different timelines, that's kind of been the biggest focus lately, is just that one single question, that what if. And right now you're living the shitty life that you're unhappy with, but what if there's this alternate version of you somewhere in the cosmos, in the greater scheme of life, that has everything that you want, your dream job, your dream partner, all the money, the best cars, the best house. Just what if that person's out there? And then what does that feel like? And can you actually feel that inside in your body, inside of every single cell of your body? And then you have to start to change your belief systems to start to match that,
Yeah.
because it's your belief systems that will drive your actions, how you think and how you feel.
Right before you mentioned Tony Robbins, I actually went to one of his conferences and he took us through an exercise of basically, having a thought process and then showing us how you can actually change the way that you think about it. And so like the stories, the way that we remember things is not actually accurate. And
Right.
so because it's not actually accurate, then why would there be any problem with going in there and like literally twisting and changing the way that we think about it? Because
Mm-hmm.
you may have had a negative connotation or perception in the past when the reality is that it was actually not as bad as you thought it was. And so if you
Right.
can shift and change that, then future forward, you can act a different way.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things that he talked about was basically amplifying the negative. So and he described it as, if it's bad now, what's it going to be like in 2 years or 5 years or 10 years, and how bad will it be? And you're supposed to amplify the pain, because as you said, pain or pleasure, right? So you
Mm-hmm.
amplify the pain enough to where you don't necessarily have to hit that rock bottom, but then if you have the perception that you're going to hit the rock bottom, that maybe that's enough for you to shift and change.
Right, exactly. And that's exactly what I was trying to get at. It's Les Brown says the reason you need like a third party looking at your life to help you sometimes, or having a mentor or a coach, is because you can't see the whole picture when you're inside the frame, and you can't see exactly what type of life you're creating without having that outside perspective. And so that's a great point that you bring up, that amplifying the pain, because yes, if you don't change your life, in some instances things are going to get bad, and you won't realize it until it happens. And so you either need to, yeah, you either need to hit physical rock bottom, you have to actually experience it, or you have to have a perception of experiencing it. And then that's when it's like, yeah, people want to change, because you can't help somebody that doesn't want to be helped.
Right.
And so you have to try to get them to understand that your life could be becoming much worse than you realize, and you're not going to realize it until it's too late.
Right. So what does it mean to be a life coach, and like how does that work with you?
It's, I hate that word. It's getting overused a lot lately. As far as like my perception anyways, maybe it's just my reticular activating system kicking in, but everybody's a life coach these days.
Right.
And it's funny because everybody just, I think, wants to help.
Mhm.
And that's all I really want to. And for me, my why is my son right here. I got pictures of him hanging up everywhere. When I was struggling, going through all of my adversity and tapping into that version of myself that I really wanted to bring back into the world, I suffered with suicide. I was on the suicide hotline more times than I like to admit. I've had some pretty scary thoughts, uh, using a gun, jumping out in front of traffic, stuff that is, yeah, I'm ashamed to admit it, but also I'm very grateful that it was there. And I have a childhood friend whose father just recently committed suicide. And it's the worst thing. And I think it's men in their mid 40s right now that are experiencing that sense of loss and that confusion, and maybe the way I was raised wasn't right. And why do I have everything that I thought that I ever wanted, but I still feel something missing
Mhm.
inside. And so it's scary knowing that people feel that way out there. And it's scary knowing that I felt that way out there. But what scares me the most is knowing that my son might grow up feeling that way. And if I don't become the best version of myself, he's not going to, he's never going to see that. He's never going to experience that. And he might not feel motivated or inspired enough to become the best version of himself. And I don't want to bring any type of any lesser version of me into his life that could potentially harm him in some way. And so that's the driving factor behind me wanting to help people, is trying to get more of that out into the world and just help alleviate all of that unnecessary trauma that we're constantly lying to ourselves about, whether it was true or not.
Your story sounds tumultuous and difficult, and just the fact that you're here and you came through this stuff is a testament of your resilience and strength. And I think that that your story is really what inspires and motivates people because, although I haven't been in your situation, to see that you've overcome such challenging things it's motivating to me in that, I would reflect back on my own issues, so to speak, and say, well, man, this guy had it harder than me, and he made it through. So if I can't complain and with my struggle, right? And that's inspiring. That I think that it's that itself inspires a lot of people, and you're the positive example as opposed to a negative example.
And that's all I can strive for, is trying to be that best version of myself every single day. And you're right. There's people that have experienced much worse lives than I have, and they're still here. They're way more motivating than I'll ever be, have bigger impact than probably I'll ever have. But there's still people out there that can resonate with me. in some way, shape, or form. And so the world is so big. And if I can help 0.0001% of the population, I mean, it's still something.
Right. Yeah, we all have to do our part, right? Whatever that is. So, what strategies have you used to help your clients to achieve, their purpose and meaning and set better goals?
That's a good question too, Trevor. Purpose and meaning, because that's something I think a lot of people struggle with. And a lot of the confusion that they experience in their day-to-day life is trying to find purpose. I mean, isn't that the greatest question of all philosophical teachers is what's my meaning, what's of life? What's my purpose being here? And so what I'm thinking of though is Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning. It's one of my favorite books. And he was just sharing his story about going through the concentration camps and not knowing what was going to happen after the fact. And when I think of individuals that I work with trying to find purpose and meaning, I tend to refer back to that book a lot because it's within our suffering that we find purpose and we find meaning. And I think it's logotherapy is how Viktor Frankl refers to it as. We're all just a big record book of life, and we have experiences that we can share with other people. And like we stated earlier, we have a 100% success rate. If somebody was in my exact shoes and didn't know what their next step should be, and they were going down the exact same path, I have a whole guidebook of exactly what you need to do. And your story is very similar for another individual. And there's plenty of individuals that right now I'm thinking of that are stuck in their 9-to-5 job and they know they want to do something else with their life, but they're scared, they're timid, they have all of these things holding them back, but they know that this isn't what they're meant to be doing. Thinking of an individual right now that he works in the banking industry and the finance industry, and he's tired. He's tired all the time. He doesn't get to see his family, and he hates his job, and he's drinking too much, and he knows that he's just going down this bad path, but he doesn't know what he should do differently. And it all comes down to self-reflection. You got to just sit with yourself and ask yourself those hard questions. Spend time taking 30 days off just to spend time with yourself and to just reflect internally. No, not everybody can do that. And so that's where a lot of the discipline and resilience comes in. You got to start waking up earlier. You're going to have to be tired for a while, but you have to start asking yourself those hard, empowering questions to get in sync, get in alignment with that God consciousness that's inside of you, that intuitiveness that you have, that everybody has innately inside of them, and just start following the path.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where quote unquote life coaching comes in. It's a series of helping individuals walking through any number of questions to just help them realize what's going on internally inside of them, getting them to take some type of empowered action towards the answers that they've always had. If that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. Now, I was thinking from the yogic teachings, they say the greatest gift to humankind was the fact that there is no meaning to life. And because there's no innate meaning, then we give it our meaning. Like each individual define our purpose, we define the meaning that everything is happening, and we're like there really is no meaning. It's not positive or negative. It's we decide whether it's positive or negative, and we
Yeah.
give it meaning in our life. And so when you can consciously craft that purpose and meaning in your life, then you can live a life of meaning and purpose. But otherwise, there's no meaning.
Mhm.
Which
Yeah,
is
that's a great point. And it reminds me of a Taoist saying, the sun will set. That's it. It doesn't matter. Like life is just about experiences and what experiences you want to have, what experiences you want to bring into the world. What do you want to do while you're here? It's a short time in the grand scheme of things.
So let's change subjects a little bit here about with individuals as far as like communication skills. What do you feel are the crucial building blocks to having healthy relationships?
Mm. I think understanding what we just talked about, is that there really is no big grand scheme meaning or purpose to life. It's all about experiences and what type of experiences do you want to have, but at the same time, respecting your partner's journey as well. Respecting what type of experiences does he or she want to have, and what type of experiences do we want to have together? Because if life is just this great big canvas, we can create whatever we want. And if we can work on, first of all, respecting and understanding where each individual came from and seeing if there's some way that you can take the God consciousness that's inside of you and the God consciousness that's inside of them and mend it, mold it together and really become one, which I think is a lot of what the idea of marriage is about, becoming one and just accepting innately who each individual is and who they are when you come together. One thing a lesson that I learned when I was drinking a lot is I look at it like a garden, and my life, my family, my home was this big beautiful garden, and my wife, bless her soul, my ex-wife, she decided to plant her seed in my garden. She said, "This looks like a safe place. I'm going to plant here. I'm going to put roots here, and I'm going to start to grow." And our kids did as well. Like, they were brought into the world. They didn't choose, but we chose. We're going to plant them in here as well. And so I'm going around and I'm working this construction job, and I'm doing everything that I can, everything that I thought was right, but I was playing the victim. I was being the martyr. I wasn't happy with what I was doing, and I wasn't authentically being me. So while I'm trying to grow this garden, it's getting the sunlight it needs, and I'm pruning it and I'm tuning it, but trimming all the weeds and everything. But here I am watering it with vodka every single day. So what's going to happen? I mean, the people in my life, the people that I love the most, even though I thought I was providing, I was watering them with poison, and they didn't feel safe. They didn't feel secure enough to bloom into the beautiful souls that they were meant to be. So that's how I look at it as relationships. It's about bringing, how can I bring joy and freedom, safety and love and harmony into their life, while at the same time respecting my own as well.
That's a great analogy. You utilizing plants, as I'm thinking about this, is we really need to provide the environment for those around us to thrive and grow. And I know with my personal experiences, in many cases, it's easy to get focused on the self. What I want out of this co-creation environment, but realizing that others are also creating their own experience and giving their own meaning. And our job is to, I guess, as you describe it, create, tend the soil and make sure we're watering it and make sure they're getting the sunlight, so to speak, to thrive. Otherwise, as you said, if you create a negative environment, they're not going to be able to grow.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
That's a great story. Thank you. How are you guiding your clients to explore their own self and discover who they really are?
I focus on four main areas. When I talk about God consciousness or divinity, that piece of divinity being inside of us, or God gifting us with life, I think of four areas. We have a physical body, and we have our emotional body, our emotions. Then we have our mindset, or our mental capacity, but then we have our spiritual body. So those four areas, we focus on each one. And where are you at? Where are you setting your limitations physically? That one's the easiest one, right? And when it comes to your physical capabilities and your fitness is the gateway to the higher dimension. I've heard that saying, I think by Bedros Keuilian, and he says fitness is the gateway to the higher dimension. That's kind of where it all starts. And so I've taken that philosophy, and working out, taking care of your physical body is essential. It's a non-negotiable. It just has to happen. You can't do anything if your legs don't work, or if you're overweight, if you can't tie your shoes without losing your the air out of your lungs because your gut's too big. It's like you need to be at your peak physical performance if you really want to take advantage of this life that you have. And so this philosophy is applied across all four of those areas, or four pillars, if you will. But starting with your physical nature, find your limitations, and you discipline yourself to push past that just a little bit every single day. And this is where the discipline and the resilience comes in. It's about developing those habits. I think of that book, Atomic Habits. It's taking those small, incremental, minuscule adjustments. And for me, my personal story, when I started biking, I really wanted to get back into running again. So I really enjoyed running, but my ankles hurt, my knees hurt. I was just ashamed because I was so heavy. And so I started with just walking at 1 mile, 3.0 miles per hour for a week. And then week number 2, 3.1. Week number 3, 3.3. Taking those, finding your limits, and then pushing past them just a little bit. Once I felt brave enough or courageous enough, it's like, I'm gonna try running. And so I'd up it, to 6 miles per hour and see how far I could go and keep track of that. And then the next time when I felt courageous enough, what was my limitation? Where did I feel like my breaking point was at? Now I'm going to prove to myself I can push it a little bit further. And now I'm running 7 miles per hour for, I think 6 miles was the last trek that I did. Finding in your emotional states, like what emotions am I experiencing, and why am I experiencing them? And this is where sitting down, journaling, spending time with yourself, trying to figure out, why the hell do I feel like shit all the time? Why do all my relationships end up failing? Why do I have this constant nagging voice in my head telling me that I'm worthless? Sitting down, journaling, asking yourself the empowering questions, emotionally trying to figure out where your limitations are at, and then doing whatever it takes. And for me, it was getting a therapist. And so and she recommended the Mindful Self-Compassion Workbook. And so that's what I do for my own emotional health every single day. And then same thing with your mental capacity. You have to learn something. You have to expand your mind, because it's your brain is just like a muscle. I mean, it is a muscle. And so it's the exact same thing. You have to find your limitations. I like to, when it comes to your mindset, your mental capacity, or learning something, what do you feel like you're dumbest at? It's like, start there. It's like, okay, well, I don't know anything about engineering. Well, go grab an engineering book and start reading it. Just expand your mind in some way. And then the same thing with your spiritual capacity, whether you're into religion, or if it's doing yoga. I mean, if you want to go to church, go to church. If you just want to sit and meditate, meditate. But do something to connect with that higher power, that greater knowing, that innate knowing that you have inside of you. For me, it was just starting by sitting in silence for 5 minutes a day, no distractions, just seeing what would come up in me. And so that's really what I do with my clients, is we focus on those 4 key areas. Really a series of questions, asking them where they feel they're struggling with the most in those areas, how they want to, and really their goals, if you will. What does that higher version of them look like in that quote unquote alternate reality, or that other version of themselves in some multiple dimension?
Right. Do you feel, or do you find that many of your clients just simply don't think?
Yeah, that's a great point. We're
Is that
not, yeah, that's it. Yeah, you summed it up right there, Trevor. And yeah, we're not thinking. We're not thinking. That's what it comes down to. We're not taking advantage of our willpower, like you were stating. The ability to think. We're these mindless drones. We're these sheep. Most of us are what's the woke. We're not woke. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like, I know that they say much of our lives are run by the unconscious,
Mhm.
and it's mostly habits that people will, on a daily basis, just do the same things over and over and over. And when you get into that that pattern, those habits, is like you don't have to think. And these were, I think, mental constructs to on purpose that we created to make us more efficient, perhaps. But that efficiency has taken us to this, as you call it, a drone, or we're like robotic in that we just do these habits. And in many cases, those habits were created by people other than ourselves, like, our
Mhm.
teachers, our parents, our, caretakers, or whatever the case when we were younger. And then we continue with these stupid habits for our entire life, which are not serving us.
Yeah,
So,
and yeah, that's great. If you can start to just become aware of your habits alone, you can open up a whole Pandora's box that, yeah, I mean, you don't know what you're going to find. It might not be Pandora's box where it ends up being this terrible thing and, demise of all the universe, but it's, yeah, find those habits. And for me, like one of the things was when I was working in that construction industry was stopping at the gas station and getting convenience food. Why do I do this every single day? It's that one habit, this physical action that I'm doing every single day. And it's because that's what I believed I was worth. Emotionally, I wasn't happy in my field of work, my chosen field of work. And I felt like I had to do that in order to confirm my identity as this dirty construction worker who was unhappy with his life. And that one habit just reaffirmed that for me every single day.
as you were speaking, I was drawn back to some words you said earlier, that your goal is to illuminate the path of self-realization, and it's almost just by asking those questions, you're shining your light on these individuals' paths so they can see. That because maybe they're walking through this path and it's dark and they don't even know what they're doing. They don't know why they're doing anything, and there's no
Mhm.
purpose to anything. And so I think having a coach like yourself to ask those tough questions and get them to answer makes them think and kind of turns the lights on, so to speak, in their mind.
Yes. Yep. Very true. And our brain is a lot like Google. I don't know if you ever heard that before, but whatever question you put into that search bar, you are going to get an answer for it. Yeah, we can't see the life that we're creating. We can't see this picture that we're drawing because we're in the frame. And so, and we're constantly asking ourselves, and our self-talk is telling us the wrong things every single day. And it's just constantly reaffirming a version of ourselves that we don't want to be.
Some of the books that I read, I had this idea that we need to step into our role as the director of our lives as opposed to playing the characters. So each one of us, we create all these characters in our lives, whether it's a father, husband, friend, brother, whatever it is. These are all really just characters that we create. And how do we create them? Well, you know, I have this idea of what a brother should be, so then I act that way. I have an idea of what a father should be, and I try to act that way. And now, if I had poor examples of that, then I'm creating these characters that are bad. It's stepping back and observing your life and all these characters that you created and become the director of this drama that we're living, as opposed to being stuck in the film.
Yes.
That
Yeah,
analogy for me just kind of like, whoa, it allows me to step above everything and see my life from a whole different perspective, which is, I think, kind of what you're talking about, right?
exactly. Yes. We're the director. I mean, we are the main character of this story, of our own stories that we're writing. But yeah, we're also the writer, we're the producer, and we're the director.
All
Yeah,
one.
all of them. Exactly.
So let's say one of your clients is navigating a major life transition. What's your approach to that and the transformation process?
Give me an example.
So, like, let's say, it's one of your clients comes to you with like a major life change, like a divorce, or
Mhm.
like your issue that you had alcohol was causing problems to your life, and like many times people can do these negative things and they can hide it, as you said you did, but at some point it comes to a T and things have to change. So, and they don't want to change because it's challenging or it's different. I think that's the big key. Is it's different than what they would normally be doing. So, how do you how do you approach that in initiating the change?
And it comes down to those series of questions and asking the questions in a unique kind of way. And each situation is very different. It's like you said some when we started this podcast. You just let your innate knowing kind of guide you sometimes. And really honing in, trying to get on the same level as that person, and not necessarily putting yourself in their shoes, but meeting them where they're at, really trying to tap into their field of vibration, if you will, and trying to understand everything from their perspective so that you can illuminate with the right type of questioning what it is that deep down they truly want. And for the longest time in my example, going through alcohol, I don't like the word addiction because it was a choice. Every single time I picked up the bottle, it was a choice. I wasn't addicted to it. It was what I was choosing to cope with the life that I had created. I wasn't happy with. But every time I did that, if I were to stop coping, stop covering up the way I was really feeling, and open my eyes a little bit more to what I was feeling innately inside myself, uh, I have all the answers to deep down what it is that I had wanted. I knew I wanted out of my relationship with my past wife. I knew I didn't want to work in that industry anymore. I knew this is right now, today is where I wanted to be, but the change was very scary. It wasn't bad. The change wasn't bad. It was just different and it was unknown. And so that unknown, just taking an individual's hand and helping walk them through that dark tunnel. A lot of times there is always a light at the other end of the tunnel, but a lot of times we're walking through this dark tunnel with our eyes closed and we admit to ourselves, hey, we can't see the light. It's not there. It's like, yes, slap upside the head and open your eyes. It is there. And so just with the right questions, Trevor, it's like you said, illuminating that path a little bit, being authentic to who you are. And when you're in a conversation with somebody and you're really connected with them, you can see the ways that they're lying to themselves. And so, and it's just kind of dancing around that lie with the right type of questioning until they admit to themselves.
I have this issue with my wife that she doesn't really want to commit to anything in the future. She doesn't really know what she wants or where she's headed. She's just kind of like going along. And every time I ask her what she wants, it's like crickets and silence. And so when you come across somebody who, although you ask questions and they don't know themselves, I mean, how do you dig deeper for them or, help them to explore?
And see, now are we gonna turn this into a coaching session quick? Why is that important for you to do that for her?
Well, I don't know if it was to do it for her, but because one of her complaints is that she doesn't get to make the decisions on what we do as a family. And my argument was that it's not that she's not making, she just doesn't give her opinion. And so because of that, I've taken the role of, guiding the family and making the decisions. Um, Otherwise we wouldn't do anything.
Gotcha. Okay. And so I would, if I were in your shoes now, if I'm connecting with you right now and I'm really trying to help you kind of dance around this topic, I would just recommend you do the same thing with her. If she does, if you believe that she doesn't feel like she can offer her opinion or she doesn't have an opinion, it's time for you as the leader of the family and as the man of the relationship to make sure she feels like she can bloom and open up and offer an opinion because she has one. I'm sure she does. Everybody's got one, but it's going to be up to you as the man and the leader to really bring that out for her. How are you watering your garden?
Right. So it's that safety thing that you were discussing earlier, right?
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
And if she doesn't want to bloom, that's that's her. That's you can't control that.
Yeah, we're all on our own path, right?
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's just not time.
Exactly. That could be too.
Now, one of the things that I as an athlete, I've always had tons of self-confidence. And I think I've like I don't know, it was just through hard work and discipline, but how do you deal with people that have self-esteem issues and low self-confidence, what's your protocol with that?
When it comes to self-esteem issues, it's a lot like those four kind of pillars, if you will, we were talking about. And I believe this low self-esteem comes not from setting a bar and then not being able to reach it. It's because people are setting their bar so damn low and they're hitting them every single day. And so some individuals have low self-esteem because they're saying, all I am physically capable of doing is going to work, coming home, sitting on the couch, having a beer, eating a bag of Cheetos, binging Netflix. That is all I'm capable of doing. And deep down, that's what they believe. And they're hitting that every single day. And just as human beings, that's not what we're built for. We're hunters, we're gatherers, we're adventurers. We got to get out, we got to seek, we got to explore, we got to expand. And so yeah, it's frustrating being in that low self-esteem place because again, it feels like you're the victim. You can't get out of that. But if you would just take the time and start to prove to yourself what you're capable of, you would start to grow that confidence. You'd start to feel better about yourself. And it's that little question, what if? What if I was meant for more than just sitting on the couch and binging Netflix? What if I can walk a mile tonight? Or what if I can join a yoga class? It's
Right.
like, I wonder what that would be like. And just, again, questions to illuminate, to open up the possibility of what you are capable of, because the potential is all there. We all have that inside of us, and we're not recognizing it. We're not aware of it, and we're not trying to fulfill it. I think that's why so many people feel like garbage all the time.
The basic would be to kind of expanding their knowledge base and gain confidence through doing. Is that
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Expand your knowledge base, expand in every ways possible. All the dynamics of being a human, what you are capable of doing.
and as you push those limits, you build new boundaries, perhaps, right?
Correct. You're expanding your capacity, and it's about stacking your little wins. Because I think a lot of people will go and they'll sit on the couch and not try because they look at this big mountain and they say, I'll never get there. And that's them not setting the bar. So I'm going to set the bar down here to make sure I hit that every single day. Well, again, you're going to feel like crap. You're going to have low self-esteem because you know you can get up there, but you just don't really want to do it. You're being lazy. And if you would just think, okay, I'm going to stack here, and then the next day I'm going to stack here, and then here, and then 6 months or to a year, you're going to be up there. You're say, holy shit, I'm a fucking rock star. I
Right.
made it.
Now, do you think that people just aren't pushing themselves out of being lazy, or is it more fear-based?
Probably a combination of both. As you were saying that, I was thinking of where we're getting our dopamine from, and we're on our cell phones, and we got DoorDash. We can have all of our fast food delivered to us. We got our Netflix and our streaming channels we can binge all the time, and we don't have to work for our dopamine anymore. And so I think that's a big cause of it as well. It goes to the laziness, and then the fear is probably centered around losing that sense of the easy feel good.
Right.
I don't want to have to work to feel good. Why would I have to do that when I can have it all right here? And deep down inside innately, you know that you can get up here, but I'm going to settle down here just because it's easy, it's convenient. I mean, 100 years ago, we had to, well, probably more than that now. I mean, we had to build our own houses, and now it's I mean, just go buy what we want. But can you imagine being our great grandfathers that had to chop down the trees, and we had to actually build the house from the ground up, mud and clay and trees out of the forest that we had to actually chop down ourselves, and then that sense of pride in accomplishment.
Yeah, it's I think it's perhaps comfort or convenience. I remember Les Brown had a speech about this. He talked about how we're driving along the highway of life and we pull over and park.
Yeah.
and I'm just gonna stay right here. It's
Yep.
comfortable, and I think many people do that, and it's it's a shame that they get stuck in that comfort zone to where things are not bad enough to change, but just good enough to stay here.
Yeah.
And many people will stay in that spot for decades in their life, which you're just wasting it.
Yeah. A lot of people never will leave. It's sad.
Yeah. Is it difficult for you to be around people that are like that? And I imagine this isn't a quick process for individuals, and what's the timing on this for most individuals?
Usually about 6 months
Okay.
for a significant change. And even then it's never ending. I
Right.
mean, it just opens up new doors. And so yeah, it is about a 6 month process. And I mean, but it all starts with that small step. And no, I don't find myself getting frustrated anymore. I used to, man. People used to bug the hell out of me, and I couldn't stand it. And I was think, why would I ever want to waste my time trying to help people anymore?
Mhm.
But that was when, yeah, I was putting the wrong stuff in my body. I wasn't doing the right things for me. And now it just is, I can relate a little bit more. And I think that's what a lot of the experiences that I've gone through have helped me with. And not only did it teach me a little bit about myself, but I can relate to more people in different kind of ways now too.
So you've gained the empathy to feel for them, I guess.
Yeah, and that empathy is huge.
So how do you deal with then the stress and emotions to help people to calm down and discover who they really are?
There's a lot of different techniques. I'm thinking of like oh, the tip technique when it comes to like stress. Yeah, using, changing your temperature, using like ice underneath your eye here to get to the brain to change that chemical response. Intense physical exercise or doing progressive relaxation. Breathing exercises are really big for stress. But for me personally, since it's worked so well, that's usually what I would resort to is doing something physically, because stress is really, it's a chemical response that's happening in the body where we're either in a parasympathetic or a sympathetic state, right? And we're not being chased by dinosaurs or tigers or lions or bears anymore. It's a different kind of stress, but the stress is still the same inside the body. And so if your body's saying, I'm being attacked, I'm about to die, it's the fight or flight response. Well, go fight or flight. Like, go punch a boxing bag or go for a run. It's like, get
Right.
that out. And so, yeah, doing something with that stress, or whether it's a pain. There's that Shaolin monk. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but he teaches about those negative emotions that you experience create a fire inside of you. And if you just sit with that fire, fire by nature is meant to destroy things. It will destroy you. But fire, if you can harness it and if you can use it for good, it can heat a home, it can fuel an entire train. I mean, it can do whatever. It's the heat that it creates inside of an engine that will propel of this massive vehicle forward. And so, and if you can harness that fire and move, like do something with it,
Right.
don't just sit in it and let it destroy you. Get up and do something.
Yeah, as you were saying that, that reminded me of like Michael Jordan or Kobe Bryant, how they used to talk about in the media when people talk trash, that they utilize that whatever emotion they get to propel them to their greatness. And
Mm-hmm.
that's that fire from within. And it's really just this transmuting the energy, right? Because they could have taken it as, yeah, they're right, or I'm bad, or whatever the case, and you could have felt bad about yourself, but instead they flipped it around and said, I'm going to prove you wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's why it's inner alchemy, right? It's transmuting it, like you said, and doing something with that. It's, well, okay, this is a negative experience that I'm having right now because these reporters are saying something bad about me. Well, what if they're right? What if I can use this feedback to my benefit? How can I do better next time so that they don't say that about me?
Yeah, that's awesome. Man, great content here. I appreciate everything that you're bringing to the table here. Is there any last message that you want people to leave with and understand?
Realize that you are perfect just as you are, and you have everything that you need right now to take your stuff to the next level. And you just have to tap into it and utilize it, and get rid of all that negative. I mean, don't let any of that hold you back. And when it comes to the life is out to get me, this is, life isn't fair. It's like, yeah, transmute that. Like you were saying, Trevor, just do something different with that. Turn it into, what is this trying to teach me? A good process that I always tell individuals that aren't necessarily ready to step into my coaching program is start with those questions, those empowering questions. Remember, your brain is like Google. So what are you going to put into that search bar every single day? You don't need to know the answers, but what are you going to put into that search bar? Start right away in the morning. I always like to start, first of all, with a big 30 ounces or 40 ounces of water to make sure my brain and body are hydrated, but then sit down and write, how can I become the best individual today? How can I tap into my higher self today? What's one thing I need to learn so that I can help others or make the biggest impact? Or how can I feel loved? How can I feel joy? Start asking those questions that you actually want the answers to, not what's wrong with me? Why does this keep happening? Why doesn't my wife love me? Why is my husband such a jerk? Stop asking those questions, because you're getting those answers. You're going to find them all day long.
Can you expound a little bit about on the value of journaling and writing the stuff down, and how has that worked in your practice?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's when you actually take the time to sit with a pen and paper, it's not just about writing, it's about telling your body, your mind, your heart, and your soul that my thoughts are valuable. And that helps a lot with self-esteem as well, and building your self-confidence. You're actually sitting down and setting time, which is our greatest commodity. We don't have unlimited amounts of time. We're only here for a certain amount. But sit down and actually start to put your thoughts on paper, because your thoughts are worth something. They are valuable. And I just, a lot of times I'll do free flow journaling, just letting the pen go, just not judging anything. That's a good way to tap into your intuition and find out, what is my soul trying to tell me, what's trying to get out. But I think just the act of journaling, it slows your mind down a little bit, and it connects you with, it connects your inner self with the outer world, and you get to actually slow down and start to see what it is that your soul is trying to speak. Do it without judgment, though. I mean, that's, I think, was a big thing for me, doing free flow journaling without judgment, and then directing empowering questions for the day.
Yeah, super valuable. Journaling, I think, is a great technique for people to start doing. I mean, just it's a practice, right? You just have to start doing it and practicing on a daily basis to get the results. But I do know that if you don't do it, you don't get results.
Exactly. Yeah. And that goes for anything.
All right, Jason Plevell, thank you so much again. I appreciate it. Tons of valuable information here, and knowledge and wisdom from your experience. Very, very useful. Thank you again. I appreciate your time.
Absolutely, man. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Gandhi said, "Be the change you wish to see in the world. You must choose to become superhuman." Thank you for listening to this episode of the Becoming Superhuman podcast. I'm your host, Trevor Schmidt. Be sure to follow our social media channels. We'll see you next time.